warning. This video expresses the author's opinion and presents alternative proposals for the study of the cosmos, not officially supported by science. Unlike the classical stance defended by astronomers, Images of the Universe analyzes the influence of the observer on the interpretation of reality. This view is supported by the Copenhagen interpretation, according to which quantum reality only exists as long as someone is observing it. According to the alternative view, exposed in numerous videos of Images of the Universe, we could extract the following postulate. We see the universe expanding continuously in our past, because it would be contracting in real time. Come. Let's explain, in detail, this crazy thought. We know that, in our physical reality, space should always be curved, because if it became flat, there would be no uncertainty in the position or speed of distant light sources, such as the stars, or even from nearby sources, as would be the case with electrons. The curvature of space is indexed to time, as seen in the future light co-model of an event. By using light to define that time that would separate us from a distant star, and not space, the impossibility of the existence of a static universe would become conditioned to our point of view. It's just that to interact with the universe, we depend on time and our memory. You would only reach the static universe directly if you had some other form of intelligence which did not depend on time. When physicists talk about gravity, they usually postulate that space would be elastic, acting like a spring. Thus, imagine two bodies with mass, one of which is infinitely distant from the other. In this situation, the spring of space that separates them would be in its rest position, where there would be no forces acting. As the distance between these two bodies decreased, the spring of space, previously at rest at infinity, would have entered its phase of contraction. A striking feature of this phase would be the continuous acceleration and the constant decrease in elastic potential energy. As can be seen, in this evaluation of science, one could not count on the existence of a stretching phase of the space spring, because, unlike its contraction phase, it would be followed by a continuous increase in potential energy. This is not what is observed in practice. If space were curving in the expansionary phase, with an increase in potential energy, in the contraction phase it should be losing curvature, with a decrease in this energy. That is, the spring of space would contract in real time, because space would be tending to flatness at infinity. At a given moment, the forces would stop acting on the spring, because it would come to rest. It is difficult for anyone to accept that the contraction of space should result from a decrease in its curvature, not an increase in it. This is the same as saying that galaxies appear to be moving away from each other faster and faster, because space would be contracting in the present, not expanding. To justify this thought, we would have to look at space-time from the outside, which is impossible. I venture to make these statements because there is something in the universe as a whole that we still do not understand. For example, to justify the thought that the universe is currently expanding, even in the evident presence of a constant drop in elastic potential energy, astronomers imagine that a mysterious force is prevailing over gravity. As until now, it has not been possible to measure this force, nor to find scientific support for its existence, we must conclude that a brick is missing in the expansionary theory. If science can abstract about the existence of matter and dark energy as being the drivers of expansion, why shouldn't the layman abstract about the existence of an outside space-time? This would become perfectly acceptable if we remembered that the concept of sides to space-time would depend on the observer. Assigning inside or outside to the universe would be a form of illusion which would not exist outside of our subjective evaluation. But, for us, this seems to be real. Astronomers maintain that the universe could only count on the inside because we would be integral parts of the expansionary movement which would have been established after the Big Bang. But, according to vain philosophy, the existence of an inside necessarily presupposes the existence of an outside. When it is assumed that space itself could generate inertia without depending on the direct influence of the masses, we would be placing this space outside of time. In this case, it could not be reached by our memory, becoming a ghost entity. It would be something similar to what happens with anti-gravity and centrifugal force, which are considered fictitious by science. Let's just consider, as a hypothesis, that it was possible to leave space outside the continuum that it would form with time. Under these conditions, space would act as a backdrop for cosmological events, and we could explain some inconsistencies in our current assessment. The first one is that the space could not communicate to us, in a direct way, any event in which it was involved. For that, it would depend on a messenger. This transient disruption of the link between space and time would explain why you couldn't see the sun's death directly, or would have to wait for 8 minutes. Space would be bending, and information about the sun's death would be withheld in the process. If space were always stretching outside what is directly observed in the night sky, we could understand why gravity would be a force of a secondary or restorative nature. The space seems to contract inside here without the cause of its contraction being able to be measured in practice because it would have stretched at an earlier moment. As the potential energy should increase with the stretching of space, it is understandable why it should decrease if it accompanied its contraction. Thus, gravity would be compatible with the relative drop in potential energy on the outside and the presence of constant acceleration on the inside. It is as if, in the interior of space-time, we are seeing a rubber band continuously relaxing after being stretched at a previous moment. It would be relaxing, but not twitching. I say that the drop in potential energy would be relative in space-time because, if space were to stretch less on the outside, anyone looking from the center of the observable universe would interpret the event of space relaxation as being a contraction motion. I mean, space would be losing some of its curvature in here in the presence of gravity and relative acceleration. The continuous stretching or expansion of space from the outside would also be in accordance with evidence recognized by science. It is the finding that intelligent life could not have arisen in the contraction phase of the universe due to the entropy problem. The increase in disorder would only find support in the inflationary phase. In other words, intelligent life would have incubated somewhere outside of space-time, where elastic potential energy would predominate over kinetic energy. This intelligence, however, would have to leave that place to be able to see it with delay and in continuous movement. This abandonment need not be physical. By having come to depend on the space messenger to be able to interact with reality, the observer would also have come to depend on his memory. That's when time came.